Hey everyone, Kevin here, and welcome back to my channel. So, a handful of episodes ago, I talked about how kids lack basic skills these days and the ever decreasing literacy and math rates we're seeing across the board now. That conversation also delved into me looking at how much of a disservice we're doing students by socially promoting them onto the next grade level or from high school when they clearly aren't ready to move forward. In essence, we're failing students by doing that and setting them up for failure later on when they aren't able to read important documents, do mathematical things like their taxes, or critically think about important issues. And after reflecting on it more, I realized that last part of the conversation needed to be expanded on a bit because there was another part that I didn't touch on as much as I should have. How we don't let students fail anymore. If anything, we actively demonize failure in today's public school system because we're afraid that if we let kids fail, then they'll never catch up and it'll break them apart in the long term. But in actuality, doing that instead is what will put them farther behind. And we saw this as teachers every single day, to the point that we constantly had to fight to give kids the grades they earned rather than what our administrators wanted. I can guarantee every single teacher, especially at the high school level, can attest to the fact that they have had to change grades or had grades changed after submitting them by their admin or were heavily pressured to pass kids who hadn't turned anything in. The minimum most schools will let teachers do now is give students half credit even when they haven't turned anything in because a zero so disproportionately affects their average and takes longer to make up. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that the freaking point? They have to make up for doing zero work on something. But now the system demands they still get 50% for it instead. In fact, many schools actually have no zero policies now and forbid teachers from even giving Fs no matter the circumstances. But look, I'll be the first to say that the long-standing grading system does need an overhaul, since an F can be up to 59% of a grade, and that isn't really fair, but abandoning the F grade entirely is not a solution either. I still remember in my last year of teaching that I literally had a meeting with my assistant principal where he, somewhat politically, asked me to pass more students, and it wasn't the first time. I had to actually interrupt him with my hand during the meeting and ask if that's what he was asking me to do. But of course, he was like, "Oh, well, that's not quite what I'm saying," even when that's exactly what he was saying. He framed it in a gaslighting way, too, claiming that supposedly I was the only one failing students, which was BS. And even if it was true, would be a damning indictment of the system where teachers have given up trying to fail students who don't turn in any work or show up to class. You're actually just teaching the kids that they'll be able to skate on through life doing very little and still succeed, which is the ultimate failure of all. Failing upwards is not an achievement. And no boss either is going to pay you half of your salary for doing none of your projects or work at your job. So why are we acting differently about work at school? I don't buy that it's because they're kids and they need to be supported either. That's a given of school to support kids. What has always been a given too is accountability and self regulation. But now we fear that because of funding frameworks. And even when kids actually do fail a class, all roadblocks needed to make up that class have almost been entirely removed and replaced with dumbed down courses like the infamous credit recovery classes during the year or over summer school. I remember substituting for one of those credit recovery classes, and all they did was sit there, do worksheets, turn them in, and they were miraculously given full credit for a course they failed, even though none of that work proved that they learned the information. And same goes for summer school, where somehow they can make up for failing a year-long math class in the span of 2 weeks. It just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, how have we reached this point? It's almost like we can't even be bothered to teach kids that actions have consequences now. Often we coddle them and prevent them from failing because administrators are scared about their funding and image rather than what's best for students. Parents aren't helping the matter either, to be honest, and they've gone from what used to be, "My kid is failing, how can I help you?" to "Why are you failing my kid?" To put it another way, I'm sure you've all heard the term helicopter parent at some point. There's actually another term which isn't as well known that we began using around 2020 that really describes this new mentality: lawnmower parent. They literally pestered their child's teachers and administrators into removing all obstacles in front of kids to the point that they are easily able to skate on through to graduation, effectively lawn mowing any challenges in their way down to almost nothing. And worse yet, we just socially promote them after all of that to get our funding and not take accountability for failing to fail the student. No matter the evidence, paperwork, or other documentation we have to prove that a kid failed, it's consistently ignored. They plagiarize that assignment, pass them. They didn't turn in any work, give them 50%. Student is absent half the school year, oh, well, just don't count those missing assignments and just grade them based on what they did. And all this does is stress teachers out even more, having to not only keep up with what their administrators demand of them, even when we know it's the wrong thing to do, but forces teachers to not be the person they want to be. Like I've said many times, I likewise became a teacher I didn't want to be just to survive. Instead, I became the teacher I had to be, and so has everyone else now, for the most part. Importantly, though, doing this removes any sense of achievement students get from putting in real effort and getting real rewards. Instead, we reward mediocrity now and don't fail kids just because it's supposedly more convenient for us. Failure isn't inherently bad, guys. Every single one of us can name times where we messed up or made mistakes and we greatly learned from them. If anything, we often remember those times the most because we grew the most from those experiences. By not giving kids opportunities to fail and learn from their mistakes, we ironically fail the students even worse than if we just gave them the F they earned. Students no longer fail. Education fails students instead. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you could consider liking and subscribing below to help keep these videos out there in the algorithm, that would be greatly appreciated. For now, though, I've been Kevin, and I will see you in the next video.